It was like the words had spilled out before I even had time to think. Jess's face went pale. I'd never seen her look so hurt, and the second I saw her reaction, I wanted to take it back. But the damage was done. I grabbed my keys and walked out, just needing to clear my head. I drove around for hours, replaying the argument in my head. I knew she wasn't trying to hurt me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she just didn't get it. I thought, this is the person I'm supposed to be building my life with. How can I trust her if she doesn't even understand why this is so important to me? By the time I got back home, it was late. Jess had gone to bed, and I ended up crashing on the couch, feeling more lost than ever. I loved her, but I was starting to wonder if this was something we could actually get past. The next morning, Jess and I barely spoke. She left for work, and I sat at home, replaying our conversation over and over. I knew she didn't mean to push me, but I couldn't ignore how hurt I felt. It was like she just couldn't accept my decision to keep my family out of my life, and that cut deeper than I'd expected. I wanted her to be on my side completely, no questions asked. By the end of the day, I decided we needed to talk it out face to face. I loved Jess, and I wanted to work through this. I sat in the living room waiting for her to come home. Only she didn't come home. I was getting nervous. I shot her text, something casual, just asking if she was okay, but got no response. The front door finally opened, and in walks Jess alongside my half-sister Megan. I hadn't seen Megan in years, not since I left home. She looked the same but older, carrying the same anxious expression she always had. Jess stood there, silent, and Megan just kind of looked at me like she wasn't sure what to say. I didn't need to ask why she was there. Jess had brought her, and for the first time in our relationship, I felt truly betrayed. Why is she here? I asked Jess, doing my best to keep my voice steady. Jess took a deep breath. She reached out to me a few months ago. I thought, I thought you might want to hear her out. Maybe try to make things right. Months. For months, Jess had been talking to Megan behind my back, letting her feed her story after story about how much I supposedly missed my family, how I was just too stubborn to admit it. I couldn't believe it. Megan had lied to Jess, manipulating her into thinking I wanted to fix things, and Jess had fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. My sister didn't say anything, just stood there awkwardly, her eyes darting from me to Jess, who was already tearing up. Megan finally broke the silence with a choked, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to get like this." But I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd stirred up all this drama for her own reasons, whatever those were. As she started crying harder, I finally lost it. "Megan, why are you even here?" I asked. "What did you think would happen?" And that's when she told me. Apparently, she'd mentioned my engagement to our mom, and it had sent everyone into a tailspin, not because they were happy for me, but because of my half-brother. He was 28, still living at home, jobless, and pretty much draining my mom and Greg dry. And here I was, living my life, moving on, getting engaged. Somehow that had triggered my mom, like it made her feel she'd failed as a parent or something, and now she wanted a chance to make amends. The whole family had turned my engagement into their soap opera. Megan explained how my mom thought that getting invited to my wedding would magically fix everything between them and me, and even somehow repair her marriage with Greg. It was like they wanted to use my wedding as a way to reunite and heal, not for me, but for themselves. At that point, I couldn't hold back. "So let me get this straight," I said. "Mom and Greg think they can just walk into my life, use my wedding as some kind of family therapy, and that's supposed to fix everything?" Megan just cried harder, nodding like she didn't even see how messed up it all was. And Jess, she was looking at me with pleading eyes, as if asking me not to make this worse. But I wasn't about to sit back and let them twist my life into their drama. I told Megan to leave. I said I didn't want any part of their plans, that I'd already decided to keep them out of my life, and this whole mess was just proving how right I was. She tried to argue, saying she was only trying to help, but I wasn't having it. I had enough of people deciding what was best for me. After she left, it was just me and Jess, sitting there in a silence that felt heavier than anything we'd faced before. She didn't say much at first. I could tell she felt guilty, but I was still hurt. Jess had let my sister manipulate her into going behind my back, and I wasn't sure how to deal with that. Finally, Jess broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I was helping, but I didn't understand." I didn't realize how deep this went. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Jess, I told you over and over that I didn't want them at the wedding." I trusted you to have my back." She looked down at her hands, clearly regretting what she'd done. I thought, I thought maybe you just needed a push, that if you saw them again, you'd want to reconnect. My family's always been so close, and I couldn't imagine not wanting to fix things. But I get it now. Your family isn't like mine. Hearing her say that hit me hard. I realized maybe I hadn't been as open with Jess as I thought. She knew my family had hurt me, but I'd never really explained how deep those wounds went, how much I still carry with me. Maybe if I'd been more honest, she wouldn't have let Megan manipulate her. "I need you to trust me," I said quietly. "Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if it's hard to understand, I need you to believe that I know what's best for me." Jess nodded, wiping her eyes. "You're right. I should have listened to you. I won't go behind your back again, I promise." I squeezed her hand, feeling a glimmer of relief. I knew this wouldn't fix everything right away, but it was a start. I loved Jess, and I knew she loved me. We'd been through a lot, and we weren't going to let this break us. We sat there for a while, just holding hands in silence. I knew there was still so much to work through, but for now, I was just grateful to have her by my side. And I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let my family ruin this life I was building. I was finally free from them, and I was going to keep it that way. The days after that talk with Jess were tense but hopeful. I think we both knew things wouldn't just go back to normal overnight. But at least now we were on the same page. We kept moving forward with the wedding plans, bit by bit. We'd talk about flowers, music, the catering, all the small details that, just weeks ago, felt so exciting but had gotten so overshadowed by all the family drama. Slowly, that excitement started to creep back in. We finished the guest list, leaving those spaces empty where my family's names could have been, and I didn't feel 1 ounce of guilt. In fact, it felt like taking back control, like finally closing a chapter I've been trapped in my whole life. One night, Jess and I were having dinner, laughing about something ridiculous, probably our disastrous attempt at baking a wedding cake sample ourselves, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I glanced at it, and my stomach dropped. Something told me it was my mom. I hesitated, but I opened the message anyway. "I heard you're getting married," it read. "We should talk." No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened between us. Just a line, as if she could waltz back into my life whenever it suited her. Like nothing had ever happened. I didn't even need to think. I blocked the number. I wasn't about to let her disrupt the peace I'd fought so hard to create. I told Jess about it, and she nodded, clearly a little relieved that I'd handled it so firmly. She knew, just like I did, that my mom showing up would only add stress and drama to the day. Jess hugged me, and I knew that she had my back fully now. No doubts, no questions. As the wedding day drew closer, I felt this wave of calm wash over me. I had Jess, I had friends, I had people who genuinely cared about me. And that's all I needed. The big day arrived, and when I woke up, it was different from what I expected. I thought I'd be nervous, but I was just ready. Ready to start fresh, to stand beside Jess and celebrate the life we were building. We'd been through so much already, and I knew we could handle whatever came our way next. The ceremony was beautiful. Jess looked incredible, and when I saw her walking down the aisle, I felt this overwhelming peace. This was where I was meant to be, with her, surrounded by people who truly cared. There was no tension, no shadows from my past, just us standing together and promising our futures to each other. At the reception, we laughed, danced, and celebrated with our friends and Jess's family. And for once, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for something to go wrong. There was no drama, no interruptions, just pure, unfiltered joy. Later that night, after the reception had quieted down, I thought back on everything I'd been through. All the years of rejection, all the times I'd felt like I didn't matter, like I was invisible. And I realized that, for the first time, I didn't need that validation. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone but me. This was my life, and I was finally free. Now, when I look back, I'm glad I didn't cave to the pressure of family or feel obligated to follow what's normal. My family had made their choice long ago, and I'd made mine. I chose my mental health, my future, and a life without their toxicity. And that's all that mattered. I don't know if I'll ever hear from my mom, Megan, or the rest of them again, but honestly, I don't care. My life is full, my heart is whole, and I'm exactly where I need to be. I have Jess, the family we'll create together, and the love and support of people who genuinely care. That's more than enough for me. They turned their backs on me, but now they want to stand by my side on the most important day of my life. When I was 11, my dad packed his bags and vanished. Just gone. One minute, he was there, and the next, he wasn't. My mom, she never gave me a reason. I come home from school one day, and suddenly, it was just the two of us. I remember sitting in the living room, staring at his empty chair, wondering what I did wrong. It was like he erased himself from my life. No explanation, no goodbye. Mom took it hard, at least that's what I thought. But after a couple of years, she started dating again. Eventually, she married a guy I'll call Greg. At first, Greg wasn't bad. He wasn't one of those nightmare step-parents you see in movies. He was indifferent, I guess. Didn't yell, didn't hit, but he wasn't exactly dad of the year either. It was like he was tolerating me, not loving me. I was my mom's previous chapter, and he only cared about the new family he was building with her. Within a year, Greg and Mom had two kids together, a brother and a sister for me, half siblings. They were his pride and joy, the ones he wanted around. Me? I was just there. I'd watch them all together, feeling like some extra character in my own life. Mom was so wrapped up in her new world that it was like I'd become invisible. Sometimes I'd be there in the kitchen trying to talk to her, and she'd just drift off focused on them. I remember thinking, am I just a ghost in this house? Through high school, I did everything I could to keep myself out of the house. I studied like a maniac, picked up a job at a grocery store at 16, and spent every spare minute away. My plan was simple: graduate, get out, and never look back. I didn't even let myself hope that things would get better with my family. I'd learned too early that expecting anything from them was pointless. But then, when I turned 18, things hit a whole new level of messed up. I just finished my freshman year of college. I was excited to be home for the summer, to have a bit of a break, maybe catch up with friends. I thought, all right, maybe things have calmed down at home. I was wrong. One night, out of nowhere, my mom sits me down in the kitchen. The same kitchen where she taught me how to make pancakes as a kid, the same kitchen where we'd once laughed and talked. Only now, she had this cold look in her eyes. She wasn't angry, just distant, detached. I think it's time you find somewhere else to live, she says, just like that. I was stunned. I asked her what she meant. Why now? She gave me some half-hearted excuse about needing space for my siblings. Said it like it was the most natural thing in the world to boot me out. No apology, no sympathy, no warmth. I was officially out. My mom, the one person who was supposed to be there no matter what, told me I was better off somewhere else. I didn't fight it. I didn't even cry. I just went up to my room, packed a suitcase, and left. The only goodbye I got was a quick glance over her shoulder as I walked out. I didn't hear from them after that. No calls, no text, nothing. For the first few months, it hurt like hell. I was bouncing around between friends' couches, barely scraping by. I remember lying awake some nights, wondering if I was just unlovable. If there was something so broken in me that even my own family didn't want me around. But over time, I learned to shut those thoughts out. I told myself that I was better off, that I didn't need them. So fast forward a few years, and I'm finally starting to get my life together. I'm working, studying, making friends. It wasn't easy balancing school and a job while trying to keep a roof over my head, but I did it. I was determined to create something for myself, to prove that I didn't need anyone's pity or help, especially not from the people who had tossed me aside. I wanted to feel like I had control, even if it was just over the smallest things. And then I met Jess. Jess was like a light in the middle of all that darkness. She was warm, funny, and had this way of making people feel seen, really seen. It was something I hadn't felt in years. We met at a friend's party, and I remember thinking, no way someone this incredible is even talking to me. But she did. We ended up talking all night, and before I knew it, I was completely head over heels. Jess didn't just become my girlfriend. She became my best friend, my safe place. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere with someone. I told her about my family, about how I'd been kicked out with barely a warning. She listened, really listened, without judgment or advice, just giving me the space to feel what I needed to feel. She told me I didn't owe anyone anything. That was a turning point for me. I realized that my worth didn't come from my family's approval, or anyone's for that matter. A couple of years went by, and things were good. More than good. We got engaged, and for the first time in forever, I was genuinely excited about something. We were talking about wedding plans, picking out venues, trying to decide on a date, all the things you're supposed to be doing when you're in love and building a life together. It felt like I was finally leaving all that family baggage behind me. Then came the guest list. We were sitting on a couch one night, laughing about the seating chart, and Jess asked me, "So, who from your side are we inviting?" I froze. I hadn't even considered inviting my family. Why would I? After everything they put me through, they didn't deserve to be there, acting like they had any part in the life I'd built. I told Jess, I'm not inviting them. Simple as that. I thought she'd understand. She did at first. Jess knew about my past, knew I didn't have that classic family support. But the thing is, Jess comes from this big, tight-knit family. You know the kind, they do big Thanksgiving dinners, family game nights, all that. She couldn't quite wrap her head around not inviting my family, even after everything I told her. So she asks, "Are you sure you won't regret it? It's your wedding, and they're still your family." That hurt, if I'm honest. I thought I'd made it clear that those people weren't my family. They were strangers who happened to share some blood with me, nothing more. I tried explaining it again, going over all the ways they'd let me down, how they'd pushed me out, how I didn't want them there acting like everything was fine when it wasn't. Jess nodded, but I could tell she was still thinking about it. I brushed it off, telling myself it was over, that she got it now. But a few days later, she brought it up again. Same question, same concern about me regretting it someday. I couldn't believe we were still having this conversation. I thought, why can't she understand? This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me finally being able to breathe, to have one moment in my life that wasn't overshadowed by their neglect and rejection. Eventually, I snapped. I know it sounds dramatic, but in that moment, I felt like she was taking their side over mine. I remember saying, if you can't understand why I don't want them there, maybe you don't understand me at all. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos.